Hello, I'm Devin, integrative health expert, Ayurvedic health advisor, and holistic coach. Welcome to InnerSpark Living from Your True Nature podcast. This is a resource for those ready to gently, naturally, and sustainably restore their energy, their clarity, their health, and their wholeness. Each episode offers grounded, practical guidance and soul deep insight drawn from nature's wisdom, integrative health, and the timeless principles of Ayurveda. Together, we explore real, sustainable self care, healing from the root and how to actually get there, and dissolving the inner barriers that keep you unwell, depleted, and stuck in survival mode. This is an invitation back home to yourself. And now for today's episode. Hello, welcome back. I am so glad that you're here with me today. We're going to explore emotions today, not in the way that we've been maybe taught to think about them, not in the way that we would typically think about them at first thought, at first glance, if you will. We're going to talk about emotions in the way that they actually are, the way that they actually move through the body, the energy system, and our lives. And most importantly, we're going to discuss the role that they play in the disease and healing process. So the truth is that most of us were never taught the language of emotions and how to be with them, how to allow them to really process. We weren't taught this in school or at home, and truthfully, not in most, quote, healing spaces. We weren't taught what they really are, how they move, or how to meet them. We were taught either, overtly or kind of through role modeling by those around us. We were taught to suppress them, to analyze them, fear them, bypass them, numb them, maybe spiritualize them or intellectualize them, to see them as problems to solve or get rid of, like as quickly as possible, rather than signals and messengers to honor. Emotions are not obstacles. They're really medicine. And they're often the very energy behind what we call disease or dis-ease, the absence of ease. So today we're reclaiming emotional fluency, maybe for the first time, which is really our own energetic sovereignty and the art of integration so that you can stop bypassing and start healing in a way that's at the root and that is sustainable and grounded and real. And so that you can be with these really potent parts of yourself that have things to share and that aren't problems. So you've probably heard the phrase before that emotions are energy in motion, emotion, energy in motion. And while that is definitely true, it's often thrown around in such a vague way that it loses its meaning and it loses its invitation. Like, okay, energy in motion, what does that mean? And what am I supposed to do with that? So let's go a little deeper. Emotions are energy, yes. And that energy has a texture and a direction and a density. Emotions express through the body as sensation and through the mind as story. So we are able to have emotions because we're in a body. And so we feel them as a sensation and the mind creates a story around them. That's why we have all these different flavors of emotions, right? Like anger feels a specific way in the body, joy feels a specific way in the body. And we have immediately the mind going into meaning making and maybe stories around the emotion, the feeling. But ultimately, it is just a sensation in the body, a movement of energy that we are tapping into and interpreting through sensation, through the physical body. Emotions arise, move, and pass when we allow them to. When we don't, when we suppress, avoid, overanalyze, or override, they stagnate, they congeal, they get stuck and frozen in the system. The imprint and energy of unprocessed emotions, those don't just go away. They become an energetic backlog, a sort of energetic constipation, if you will, that then serves as the genesis of the disease process. And this shows up in our systems as everything. Things like tension, fatigue, burnout, inflammation. Unprocessed emotions become holding patterns, trigger points in the body, sources of pain, chronic symptoms, and then eventually full blown disease. Holding these things messes with our body's natural functions. And when we can't function optimally, we don't digest the various inputs of our life, whether it's life experiences or food. And all of that input must be digested. And when it does not, the backlog becomes toxic sludge that again serves as the genesis of the disease process. The body holds what the mind couldn't process, and that energy still needs to move. Emotion, energy and motion. If it's not flowing, it's sticking, and that comes with a cost. And I can relate to this, my goodness, so directly. For most of my life, I lived from the mind. I forgot that I had a whole source of wisdom, a whole thing from the head down. It was just, how can I kind of just figure my way out of things and plan and project and protect and make stories and make meanings. And I was wearing a role of the strong one or the capable one, the mature one, the responsible one, the one who doesn't make a scene. I learned very early on which emotions were acceptable and which ones weren't, like most of us. So I internalized those messages, right? Like, good girls don't cry. They don't get angry. They don't need too much. They're calm, composed, quiet, and helpful. And in a recent episode, I discussed, the sort of genesis of kind of lifelong soul depletion. And when we're in really dysfunctional early life situations, we're going to internalize a lot more unhelpful coping mechanisms and stories for every part of life, but specifically with emotions. So we learn to hide the hurt, to stuff down the anger, to smile through the pain, to intellectualize the grief, to numb and bypass and perform. But those emotions, like I said, they don't disappear. That energy is still inside. And in my case, it was unprocessed, undigested, and unacknowledged, as it is for most of us. And when we're not allowed or not safe to process our emotions, we're not just carrying around old stories, we're carrying around stored charge that contributes to the breakdown of our system. So think about times in your life, or perhaps there are specific triggers that you have. That's a popular word these days, triggers, where you react. You don't respond, you react in a way that perhaps doesn't necessarily fit the situation that's happening in front of you. So you might go completely just off over something so simple and trivial. That's a clue. That's a very good clue that the thing that you're reacting to has nothing to do with what's happening right now in front of you. This situation has a similar energetic frequency in your body of something else that has not been processed and looked at. And so it's rubbing up against that charge. And when we're not letting that flow, again, it contributes to the breakdown of our system. So it's not just affecting our mood, like, oh, you're not being a very nice person when XYZ happens because you respond in a way that is just really big, but this charge is also subtly impacting the gross. So it's subtly influencing your mind, your beliefs, your choices, your view of the world, which is impacting your physiology, the stress hormones that are pumped through your system probably more frequently than is necessary. It's all connected. It affects the organs, the digestion, our posture, our breath, our immune system, our clarity, our capacity to receive life. So, this is taking a tremendous amount of energy away from natural functions and robbing us of the clarity and the capacity to be who we truly are in life in the absence of stories, in the absence of unprocessed stuff that we don't need to carry around anymore, and the ways that, again, that shapes our views of the world, the perception of ourself, the definitions we have for ourselves and how we have to be, et cetera, et cetera. I really like to think of this as ocean waves. Emotions are like ocean waves. They are meant to rise up and do their ocean wave thing, go to the shore, go back in. It's this beautiful fluid motion. And so we can try to build a seawall, which is what many of us have done in our lives and walking around trying to hold it all in. And the water will still do its thing. It will rise. It will crest and crash and recede because it needs to. That's its nature. If you dam it up for too long, eventually something is going to break. So, to make this a little bit clearer, we can think of a couple of examples here. Suppressed grief tends to manifest in the lungs. So, things like breath constriction, difficulty breathing, asthma and asthma like episodes, fatigue, sadness, depression. Repressed anger is very connected to the liver. And so there's a lot of Ayurvedic influence in what I'm sharing with you. This is also echoed through various energetic and somatic wisdom modalities, as including Chinese medicine and neuroscience, and my own lived experience and the lived experience of many people I've spoken to, and many things that I have heard and read. And so when we say like lungs, liver, kidneys, nervous system, etc., these are the energetic, kind of metaphorical correspondences of these things. So we can think of like body part metaphors, and they're also the literal, tangible lungs, liver, etc. So anger is very tied into the liver, and repressed anger will show up as inflammation. All those in any itis things, any itis, it ends in itis, it's linked to inflammation. There's some elevated pitta, repressed anger there that needs to be explored, as well as anything that is like a skin issue, agitation, heat sensitivity, autoimmunity issues, etc. Chronic fear really is connected to the kidneys and the nervous system and the adrenals. The adrenals and the kidneys are basically right on top of each other. The adrenals are these tiny little glands that are basically right on top of the kidneys. And so this chronic fear and insecurity and anxiety, that's a lot of this elevated vata. And that's going to show up as things like burnout, adrenal fatigue, um, really high sensitivity that kind of impacts life. This kind of state of fragility, not feeling very strong energetically, physically, emotionally, mentally, etc. And then shame, perhaps the heaviest of all, really impacts like just the whole system. In my experience, it's like it kind of shuts down the gut. It's like a dampening, like a wet blanket that just weighs everything down, kind of snuffs out the fire, um, And so this is again like the energetic and the physical gut. So digestive issues, yes, but also just like an inability to flow and digest life. So this lack of assimilation. And so let's go just a little deeper into the energetics here because I love this and that's where we're going. Holding emotions takes energy. Like I said, so much energy. And the longer we hold, the more depleted we become. Emotions are meant to move. They need to be felt, they need to be witnessed, to be expressed and released in a safe, embodied, rhythmic way. When we hold them in, they calcify, they create muscular tension, chronic illness, inflammation, and those subtle energetic blocks that rob us of life on every level, because the subtle is always creating the gross. Okay. But when we allow them to flow, we can restore our clarity and our vitality and our connection to life. Now, flow, it's not an either or thing. Okay. So I'm not suggesting that, oh, we're all just emotionally constipated and suppressed. And so we need to just flow here, which means we're going to just live in emotional chaos and be ruled by our emotions and just having breakdowns. That's not the answer either, right? That's kind of just the opposite swing of the pendulum in the way other way. That's not what we're saying. It means to build and nourish the capacity to feel, to be with life without bracing, without having that internal freak out when there's a flicker and a flare of an emotion. Because there's this internalized belief around not having emotions or not feeling or which ones are acceptable or we have to be the same all the time or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. We need to reclaim the energy that we're using to stifle the flow and put it towards nourishing our resilience. And nourishing, when I say resilience, resilience as the capacity to feel, to be with life, to let these emotions process means to hold space for what arises within and around us in a present and mindful way without becoming attached or averse to the experience in any way. I'm going to say that again because it's really important. Healthy emotional processing is holding space for what arises within and around us in a present and mindful way without becoming attached or averse to the experiences in any way. Having that capacity to simply be, to hold that space, to be with what is here, and then letting it move. So, not getting attached, not becoming averse, which are two sides of the same coin. Aversion is a form of attachment as well. Nature mirrors this for us so beautifully. When the seasons shift, when the tides ebb and flow, when storms roll in and out, there is a natural arc to all things. Emotion is natural. Energy in motion is natural, and suppression is not. So how do we start to move that energy safely? It's not with fancy techniques or with more figuring out or trying really hard or like I said having all right now I'm just going to like have breakdowns and freakouts every day and just like do the opposite. We need rhythm, breath, presence and stillness. These are the containers that create safety for emotional movement. So your body, your physical body is the container for your life experience. And your life experience includes emotions, sensations, energies rising and falling in response to the world within and around you. So your body is this container, and emotions are simply messengers. We can think of it as like little cues, a little barometer, little co-pilots. They speak through the body. They're just letting us know something. And we don't need to do anything about it, except for simply hold the space for it to happen. And it doesn't happen in the head. It's not happening with overthinking. It is not happening through attaching the stories of, feeling is weakness, feeling is a burden, it's inappropriate, I'm not supposed to. No, none of that. Feeling is power. It gives you access to more of yourself and to more of your abilities. So, emotional healing requires grounding and anchoring, coming back to earth through creating that stable foundation that I am so passionate about teaching people. It's what we do in everyday rhythms, creating that consistent daily foundation of fundamental, nourishing self care, the five essential practices, and syncing those up with the rhythms of nature on a daily basis. So this is that slow, steady, quiet medicine, and it works. This is how we turn the tide, to keep rolling with the ocean wave themes here and metaphors. This is how we take our energy back, redirect it from trying to build that seawall to nourishing ourselves from the inside out so that we can really reestablish our capacity to hold space for the happenings within and around us, which takes a lot less energy, by the way. It might sound like, oh, it's big and scary. It takes so much less energy to simply be with what is than to try to maintain a seawall at all times. There's just a quick little nugget I wanted to add into this episode. So, I wanted to dispel a little bit of a common myth. So emotions are energy, which means that emotional healing is energy healing and energy healing is emotional healing. But energy healing isn't someone waving a wand over you. It's not outsourcing your pain to someone else to clear. It's not about erasing or escaping or forking out tons of money to an energy healer. A lot of those modalities are beautiful. They're really helpful. They're excellent. However, true energy healing, emotional integration, just for integration's sake, for healing, for wholeness, is an inside job. It's not something to go seek another to do for you with some fancy technique. Energy healing is the completion of cycles that were interrupted. It's presence and rhythm and safety. And so, I've heard so many people over the years that I've worked with, well, I went to an energy healer and they did some work on me and I don't know why my adrenals aren't healed now, or like why I'm still so tired. And they'll explain to me some of the things that were involved, and it just, yeah. So it is an inside job. Seek the places where people are supporting you. What's that phrase? Teach a man to fish and he'll eat for a lifetime. Give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Yeah. So find those spaces and people that are passionate about empowering you to get to know yourself and to really take back your own power and your sacred self responsibility and awaken your own innate healer from the inside. Those are the spaces where I invite you to spend your time and your resources. And can transformation happen fast? Absolutely. When we're aligned and truly ready to let go, I have experienced personally and witnessed personally some remarkable shifts very quickly, very easily. Because, like I said, we don't need to sit around and do the figuring or the analyzing or the meaning making or the processing. When we're aligned and ready to let go, we go. The wave does its thing and it goes back to the sea. But there are no shortcuts or substitutions for feeling with presence and for restoring that innate capacity to feel. That's what's lost. That's how we heal at the root. Not by continuing to do the same things in that depleted state, but by kind of finding that power within us to surrender and reclaim our our resilience and capacity to hold things. So, integration, feeling, moving, honoring the fact that emotions are energy in motion. There is a sensation in the body and a story in the mind. We hold compassionate space for what arises without being attached or averse. We feel it, we witness it, we let it move. That's it. You don't have to understand everything to release it. In fact, trying to understand often creates more attachment. And when we're attached, we're not ready to let go. We think we're processing, but we're actually just circling, stuck in the same loop, waiting for some intellectual clarity to save us. Oh my goodness, I'm calling myself out here. And again, reiterating, emotions are not facts. They are not tied to your identity. They are not who you are. Healing does not happen through the mind. It happens when we meet ourselves. You are your own healer, not because you fix yourself, but because you feel yourself. You feel yourself. You witness yourself. You honor what arises and allow it to move. So, as we close, I invite you to explore, maybe in your journal or in meditation, what emotions do you habitually resist? Where do you find yourself reacting in a way that maybe doesn't necessarily fit the situation in front of you, but it's probably tied to something in your system that is not complete? So it's rubbing up against that charge. Where in your body do you feel stuck, and what might be asking to flow? How can you choose presence over performance and drop that seawall? Just maybe today. What could that look like? Healing is meeting yourself fully. And the moment you choose to feel instead of flee, the moment you choose to know yourself instead of numb yourself, that's when you really come home to yourself, and life becomes so much richer and more fulfilling and a lot simpler.